Multiplied Man and the Reign of the Machine by F.T. Marinetti from Le Futurism, 1911. All this will have left you disposed to understand one of our principal futurist efforts, which consists of abolishing in literature the apparently indissoluble fusion of the two concepts of woman and beauty. This ideological fusion has reduced all romance to a sort of heroic assault that a bellicose and lyrical male launches against a tower that bristles with enemies. A story which ends when the hero, now beneath starlight, carries the divine beauty woman away to new heights. Novels such as Toilers of the Sea by Victor Hugo or Salambo by Flaubert can clarify my point. It is a matter of a dominant leitmotif already worn out, of which we would like to disencumber literature and art in general. That is why we are developing and proclaiming a great new idea that runs through modern life. The idea of mechanical beauty. Once we exalt the love of machines, of the kind we see kindling in the cheeks of mechanics, scorched and smeared with coal. Have you ever observed them washing the huge, powerful body of their locomotive? Theirs are the attentive, knowing endearments of a lover who is caressing a woman he adores. It is a fact that in the recent strike of French railroad workers, organizers of sabotage could hardly persuade even a single machinist to sabotage his locomotive. That strikes me as a perfectly natural. How could one of these men ever have wounded or murdered his great girlfriend, faithful and devoted, with her quick and ardent soul? This beautiful steel machine that had so often glowed with sensuous pleasure beneath his lubricating caress. This is not just a fanciful image, but an impending reality that within a few years we will be able to confirm. No doubt you have heard the comments that automobile owners and factory directors routinely make. Motors are truly mysterious. They have moods and unexempted whims. It seems they have a personality, a soul. You have to caress them, treat them with respect, never mistreat or overwork them. But if you do that, this machine of iron fused with steel, this motor constructed according to precise specifications, will not only give full performance, but double or triple, much more and much better than had ever been foreseen in the calculations of its builder, its father. In short, I attribute great importance to the revelations contained in these comments, which, for me, announce the impending discovery of the laws of a new sensibility of the machine. Hence, we must prepare for the imminent and inevitable identification of man and motor, facilitating and perfecting a continual interchange of intuitions, rhythms, instincts, and metallic disciplines that are absolutely unknown to the great majority of people today and are divined by only the most clear-sighted minds. If we grant the transformational hypothesis of Lamarck, we have to recognize that we are aspiring to the creation of an inhuman type, one in which moral suffering, generosity, affect, and love will be abolished. Poisonous corrosives that sap the inexhaustible supply of vital energy, interrupters of our powerful physiological electricity. We believe in the possibility of an incalculable number of human transformations, and we declare without a smile that wings are waiting to be awakened within the flesh of man. The day when it will be possible for man to externalize his will in such a way that it is prolonged beyond himself like an immense invisible arm. On that day, dream and desire, which today are empty terms, will reign supreme over conquered space and time. This inhuman and mechanical type, constructed for omnipresent velocity, will be naturally cruel, omniscient, and combative. He will be endowed with unexpected organs, organs adapted to the exigencies of an environment made of continuous shocks. Already now we can foresee an organ that will resemble a prow developing from the outward swelling of the sternum, which will be the more pronounced, the better an aviator, the man of the future becomes. Much like the analogous development discernible to the best flyers among birds, you'll be able to better understand these apparently paradoxical hypotheses of considering the phenomena of externalized will that are continually manifested at spiritualist seances. It is a matter of fact, and you can easily verify it, that already today we can increasingly find workers utterly devoid of education and culture, who nevertheless possess what I would call a great mechanical divination or metallic touch. This is because such workers have already experienced the education of the machine and have in some way or other become related to the family of motors. In order to prepare for the formation of the inhuman and mechanical type of multiplied man, it is necessary to drastically reduce the need for affection, a need which is not yet destructible and which man carries in his veins. We need to reduce our need for affection to that low level already achieved by certain 40-year-old bachelors who assuage their foolish hearts' thirst with the energetic gambols of a frisky poodle. Future man will reduce his heart to its purely distributive function. The heart has to become in some way a sort of stomach for the brain, which will methodically empty and fill so that the mind can go into action. Already today you can meet men who go through life almost without love, in an atmosphere that is the color of steel. We must ensure that such exemplary men increase in number. These energetic beings have no sweet lover to visit at night, but in the morning they make sure that their garage or factory gets off to a perfect start, opening it with amatory scrupulousness. To the more passionate among the young, I would advise developing a love of pets, dogs, cats, horses, for such love offers regular satisfaction to that need for affection, which a woman would only exasperate with her capricious whims and feline scent for curiosity. We are also convinced that art and literature exercise a critical influence on all social classes, even the most ignorant, who drink it in through mysterious infiltrations. Literature can hasten or retard the movement of humanity towards this form of life liberated from the sentimentalism and lust. In defiance of skeptical determinism, which we must destroy every day, we believe in the usefulness of literary propaganda. It is active propaganda that we are conducting in the novel, and it plays against the glorious conception of Don Juan and his comic counterpart, the cuckold. These two terms should lose all meaning in life, in art, in the collective imagination. Ridiculing the cuckold simply contributes to aggrandizing the Don Juan, while aggrandizing the Don Juan simply makes the cuckold more ridiculous. Emancipating ourselves from these two themes, we shall free ourselves from the great morbid phenomenon of jealousy, which is nothing other than a product of Don Juanesque vanity. Thus, we shall witness the disappearance not just of love for the woman wife and the woman lover, but also for the mother, the principal support of the family, and as such in opposition to the bold creation of future man. Once it has been freed of the family's suffocating grip, the constricting circle, which represents not just traditional life par excellence, but animal life par excellence, humanity will remorselessly dispense with filial and maternal love, warming yet harmful trammels to be broken. It is for this reason that we, while awaiting such changes, find propaganda in support of free love to be useful, since it breaks up the family and accelerates its destruction. And yet, while we remain dead against the divinity of love, we affirm within ourselves the existence of an intellectual solidarity, which is an absolutely new discovery among the Latin peoples. I am referring to the spiritual I'm referring to the spiritual friendship that brings together rebellious and innovative minds. Immense romantic love will thereby be reduced only to copulation for the preservation of the species, and the friction of the epidemis be freed from all provocative mystery, from all appetizing spiciness of sin, and all Don Juanesque vanity, a simple bodily function like eating or drinking. The multiplied man of whom we dream will preserve his genital power until death, as one does one's stomach, and will never know the tragedy of old age and impotence. But to achieve this, young males of our time, at last nauseated by erotic books and the double alcohol of sentimentality and lust, finally immunized against the sickness of love, must learn to destroy all sorrows of the heart within themselves, every day lacerating their feelings and distracting their sexual organs and their minds. Thus, our frank misogynist optimism is sharply opposed to the pessimism of Schopenhauer, that bitter philosopher who so often offers us the seductive revolver of philosophy in order to destroy in us our profound nausea for woman and love. It is precisely with this revolver that we gaily take aim at the great romantic moonlight. So that concludes The Multiplied Man and the Reign of the Machine by F.T. Marinetti. I'm going to introduce the panel for the evening. We've got the other Carl here. We got Alcaz, we got CSD, and we have Rex. So what did you guys think of that reading?
I thought that actually pretty interesting, especially at the beginning part as well, and how he's getting into the connection where like, basically women are obsolete in some sense of the way, and machine has already found a new traction. Like his whole talk with the locomotive and like how not even a saboteur can convince a man to destroy his machine, something that he takes pride in and takes care of, delicately and carefully. I don't know. I find it to be rather interesting.
Oh, sorry, you go on.
That's fine.
Oh, I was going to say it reminds me a lot of what Nick Lance has talked about when it comes to machines and people, and how like technology slowly erodes the older social order of things, and eventually we're going to become less human and more machine.
I would
it's very transhumanist.
Yeah,
yeah, it's surprising.
To an extent.
It's definitely like outland. It's definitely boldly saying like, you know, to put women in the back, just kind of put them in the back of the priority. They're merely here for like the mere convenience of us continuing our species. I mean, it's basically outlined right in there. So that is very interesting as well to take note of.
Yeah, he sees women as a distraction from man achieving his true greatness. Sees women almost as like dead weight. They have like a very specific function, and you know,
their only use is producing children.
Yeah, to procreate and perpetuate the species. Other than that, men have more important things to do than like romanticize women and like chase skirts around all day. Yeah, he's kind of like promoting voluntary celibacy or something along those lines.
Well, I mean, he says like he basically gets into the fact that you should, you know, find more appreciation in like pets or machines or whatever, anything but women. You can find I forgot what he what it was specifically, but he basically said like you'll find more like, how to put it. Hang on, let me find a line because it's actually a pretty interesting line. 1 second.
It surprises me that Land has not taken influence from Marinetti.
Okay, here we go. To the more passionate among the young, I would advise developing a love for pets, dogs, cats, and horses, for such love offers regular satisfaction to that need for affection. Basically, he's literally saying, like, what do you even need a fucking woman for? You can get the same shit from your pet. And not even, like, in a sexual manner. It's just, like, in terms of, like, basic satisfaction of having a company. No, I don't think that's what he's insinuating.
Yeah, your dog just wants to be fed and petted and feel like it's loved and appreciated. Like, you know, it doesn't need the constant, like, vilification or support, you know, which becomes a distraction.
Well, of course, it's there. You need if you need, like, the boost your mood, spend your time with your pet, give them all affection, they'll appreciate you, you appreciate them, and then think, okay, now I can go back to doing whatever I need to do, and they're not going to be in my way. Yeah. While a woman's more maintenance and they'll get in your way and slow you down. You have to go take care of them and talk with them about their feelings, blah, blah, blah.
So I know that feeling.
I'm sure we all. But, yeah, it's interesting, like, what he's outlining there.
Yeah. I would also draw a parallel with J.G. Ballard and Crash. Like, he's like the fetishization of machinery is like a central theme of Crash by Ballard. We are going to cover that in the coming weeks for sure. I think it's very futurist in theme, like thematically.
With these kind of things, it does lead me to wonder how like Marinetti would feel if like the technology was there in his time about the idea of like what do you call it? Just how do I put it?
Artificial insemination.
Yeah, basically laboratories and all that stuff where you can have like vat-born children. You don't even need women anymore. I wonder if
probably
he'd be
be
fully.
pro.
Yeah, he'd probably be totally in favor of that,
Like we
which does
talked
leave a
before,
question for women.
Marinelli is very asexual. Like he's not like
No, I know.
homosexual
I
or
mean, after
heterosexual. He
he
just kind of sees sexuality as a distraction. Like he says, he wants to shoot down Amor with a capital A. He calls it a nausea. Like he does not like sexuality at all.
Go ahead.
I mean, after all, didn't he just support free love, just to destroy the family and to remove women from the picture?
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. In Mafarka, he talks about like men being able to breed independent of women, like with machines. So like, yeah, he ultimately wanted to remove women from the equation entirely. It was like pure fantasy at the time, but
It's not that far off at this point now with the technology we have.
Not gonna lie,
You
Yeah,
could
you
do
can do
it.
it now.
the world is very depressing, in my opinion. I mean, you know how like last episode we talked about Nikish's criticisms of technology and Marx?
yeah,
That's basically my opinion on futurism at this point.
yeah. This is the like reverse of Nikish's view. Like he thought that like technology degraded man and made him obsolete, and Marinetti takes the opposite approach. And man is going to achieve great things when he like embraces technology and machines, and
Yeah,
it's
we
how
only
he's
be
going to.
cyborgs.
It's
Yeah,
it's how we're going to reach our full potential.
Yes, but I see it as more just eroding away of our identities at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of the point. I mean, I can see like the point he's making. It's a matter of the like, should we? Like, do we really need to? It's like a romanticization, really, of an idea.
I'd say like evolution like does not stop at any point in time. We're always evolving and absorbing new things, and
Of course.
adapting to new environments and new conditions. And if we're a weak-willed people, it will break us. But if we have the will to power to hold on to our identity with the changing of times and technologies and all that, then we'll emerge stronger because of the threat that's presented by technology. It won't destroy us, like Nietzsche says, that which does not kill us will only make us stronger.
I
Even
don't.
though, sorry, go ahead.
I don't disagree with that, but I think like Marinetti takes it a little too far, where it's basically erodes everything that makes, like, in his case, Italians.
He wanted Italy to let go of the past because it was weighing them down. It was like basically dead weight, like romanticizing ancient Rome, which is not
Oh, yeah.
relevant to Italians anymore. And they surround themselves with these ruins.
He outlines that in the Futurist Manifesto. I mean, like, why would you want to spend so much time for an admiration of the past? Like, it's gonna be unproductive as fuck when you could just be making a better future,
Yeah,
creating something new.
I don't disagree with that, but I think Marinetti went into a went on the other side, too far on the other side direction. I think like fascism was the best synthesis of both. At least for Italy.
He wanted the new Italy, to aspire to be greater than Rome, and romanticizing Rome is just like if you're looking in the rearview mirror all the time, you're not going to get very far. Like you need to look forward. And
Oh yeah, here's a favorite line. I fucking love this. Like, it's so perfect from the Futurist Manifesto. Do you want to waste the best part of your strength in a useless admiration of the past, from which you will emerge exhausted, diminished, and trampled on? Like, it's so fucking true. But it is a callback to that, in terms of, like, again, neglecting the past. Like, what the fuck does it matter? Why jerk yourself off to Rome? That happened like well over 1,000 years ago. When you could just be creating something better.
I would say the same about movement people today. Like we all have our fascist heroes and all that, and like we should honor our heroes, but don't get too attached to that. Like, yeah, this is a new era. We need new ideas. We need to start thinking outside the box, like the original fascist movements did. Like, we're not trying to recreate fascist Italy 100 years later in a completely different country. Like, we can't do that.
Yeah, no, it makes
as much as as much
No,
as
we
we
can't.
admire these figures, like, you know, take the parts that are still relevant and, you know, think outside the box,
It's
incorporate
a
new
matter of
ideas.
absorbing it.
Like,
Don't adhere to a strict line of doctrine. It's absorbing it, and understanding it, and then processing it, and thinking back to what we have today and how it would go, you know, adapt more organically. Because again, people kind of forget about that part. It's not very communistic in the sense of, you know, let's go copy and paste my ideology here, and here. Like, it's fashion doesn't work like that. Let alone, like, again, it wouldn't make any sense. Let alone the social policy of even trying to copy a social policy of like an earlier fascist government. Like, that shit would have changed by now. So it's
yeah,
like
for sure.
you're being archaic and adhering to useless tradition and all that stuff. In quotations, tradition.
We need to be flexible and robust, and, you know, we shouldn't fear change. We should embrace it, and, you know, not run away from it. At least, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that was always what it was about.
It does present, you know, a challenge, and I don't pretend to know like the be all end all formula that's like gonna work for our current circumstances, but, you know, we, like, you know,
It just
Well, it's necessity.
That's
It's why
it.
you have to go research. You go research, you absorb it, and you reflect, as you would do reading philosophers of old. Like, it's just, you read it, you process it, you absorb it, and think of how it can be applied today, but not like obviously to fucking line after line, you know, for pragmatism.
yeah, for sure. So let's look at the text. So yeah, I really like this part. He's talking about the strikers in France. It is a fact that in the recent strike of French railroad workers, organizers of sabotage could hardly persuade even a single machinist to sabotage his locomotive. That strikes me as perfectly natural. How could one of these men ever have wounded or murdered his great girlfriend, faithful and devoted, with her quick and ardent soul? This beautiful steel machine that had so often glowed with sensuous pleasure beneath his lubricating caress. This is not just a fanciful image, but an impending reality that within a few years we will be able to confirm.
I mean, you can see that already. Like, even just like a couple decades after the war, you can see the giant craze too of, like, you know, when you have muscle cars coming around. I'm sure everybody's had that family member or family who's been obsessed with them, and they treated them like they were kids. They would love it. They would live with that shit. So there's definitely like a, you know, it's nothing like outlandish to have such like a great admiration for your machine of whatever it may be.
It reminds me of the machine pervert from Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Yeah, that's another definitely futurist film and manga. I think it was a manga originally, but
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the movie.
Yeah, it was.
We should cover that at some point too. Great movie. But yeah, it also deals with like the fetishization of machinery. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for bringing up Tetsuo. I don't really have anything to add. If you've seen the movie, it's kind of self-apparent.
But the whole man and machine merging is very Tetsuo-esque, right? Like that's what happens in the movie. Not to spoil it, but
Yeah,
you know, he merges with machine, becomes something greater, I guess, and like almost surpasses women, right? Because you know, he doesn't
yeah.
mold with his girlfriend. He molds with the machine and with another guy.
It is a very homoerotic movie too, which, you know, it's too bad Arjuna isn't here. I think he would be good for this reading, but he couldn't make it. But yeah, running through the text again, make sure we don't miss any important parts. If anyone has anything they want to
Well, I just want to say really quick. It is important, you know, to think about, like, especially like in North America, what kind of stuff like really meshes with the people, what kind of strategy works, because yeah, you can't recreate what happened in the past. You have to think ahead and create something totally organic to the culture.
Yeah, and the times, like, 21st century fascists really shouldn't be too dogmatic. Yeah, like I said, we should be flexible and robust,
Yeah.
open-minded, willing to consider new ideas, new perspectives. So many people in the movement are not at all like that, though.
Yeah, we need to change,
Th-
man.
that's-
You adapt, you change, or you die and wither away. Like,
That's
Exactly.
the problem with a lot of these dissident movements, regardless on where they're third position, communists or whatnot, is that many of them are so stuck in the past, they're not realizing the realities that we are in now.
Of course, it's easy to get lost into history and romanticize the shit out of it and try to be as true to it as it was then. But again, it's like, why are you adhering to an ideology that has nothing to do with your nation? Even if it does, what the fuck? Why are you focusing solely on a certain period of time? I mean, again, like, they reassert this, like, the fascists already understood this. I forgot which book it was. I know it was one of the, it might have been the Doctrine. It outlined, like, basically that the government itself is about self-improvement, and every so and so amount of years it'll routinely keep up to date with the times. It'll keep in check, not just be draconian and sit behind and be archaic. Like, it'll, constantly update, and the time shift or the cultural, like, shift, whatever it is. I'm speaking vaguely because it could really be anything. It'll
Yeah,
keep the times. It won't just keep its head in the sand and not want to budge like some kind of fucking static traditionalist monarchy. We're not that. We're not traditionalists, or at least not in a sense of that of how you look at a monarchy.
We're
Even the more like
revolutionary and trying to create a
we are,
completely new kind of society and a new world based
even
around
the Falange understood it,
yeah, no, they
and the
all
Falange
did.
were fucking.
But
They still like they were in favor of like a church and state kind of thing, but one, the church cannot undermine the state. That's an outliner, and two, they didn't want to lock women up inside the household. That's what traditionalists would want to do.
We're
Fascists
Yeah.
aren't about that kind of stuff.
We're conservative in other ways and we're progressive in others. That's how I like to put it.
I really like this line. We believe in the possibility of an incalculable number of human transformations, and we declare without a smile that wings are waiting to be awakened within the flesh of man. It's very in keeping with what you were just talking about. Fascism, like the original movement, was very progressive for its time. They didn't have like super reactionary views on a good number of things that like people hold now. Fascism in power is different from like early fascism in theory, though. Like, compromises had to be made, and so many people like define fascism based on policies that were passed, and like, which is really those compromises that were made.
Of course. And the compromises, I mean, like in Italy, I mean, you have to remember the king was still in power, and the king could just do what he wanted to do later on, anytime he wanted to. He had to keep
Yeah.
them in check, and he also had to like deal with the capitalists as well. I mean, eventually, obviously, look what happened in '43. All the reactionaries and capitalists and all these people went against Italy and fascism. So I mean, it shows where the allegiances lie, and and where did it go? It went to obviously right back to like what it originally was. I wouldn't even say like they veered off so much. And more so, it was just a process. But since now there's a civil war, the revolution can fully take course, and then you can see fascism, as it really truly intended to be, start getting implemented. Because there's nothing holding back the fascist state. Outside of that, obviously, I guess you can say of Germany, but that's pedantics.
What do you guys think about this line? Future man will reduce his heart to its purely distributive function. The heart has to become in some way a sort of stomach for the brain, which will methodically empty and fill so that the mind can go into action.
I think it's kind of against like sentimentality and like emotion. Kind of, it's all about like fucking just going for it. Like, mind over matter, I guess.
Mena Frego,
Yep.
do what needs to be done, Yeah, we talked about the pets line. I like that. In defiance of skeptical determinism, which we must destroy every day, we believe in the usefulness of literary propaganda. It is active propaganda that we are conducting in the novel and plays against the glorious conception of Don Juan and his comic counterpart, the cuckold. Thoughts on that? Are any of you familiar with like Don Juan?
Yeah,
I've never read it,
ironically,
no.
it says Don Giovanni in my one. It says Don Giovanni, not Don Juan. I know who Don Juan is. He's a very famous womanizer.
Yeah.
I got the memo when I was reading it because it's kind of contextualized.
Yeah. There was a movie in the 90s. I saw it like back in the day. I hardly remember it though. But yeah, he's like a womanizer. Very D'Annunzio kind of figure. Yeah, Marinetti felt that like Italians and like Latin people in general lusted after women too much, and like it made them soft. Like it was a distraction from
Yeah, I
achieving
think
greatness.
Marinetti saw like the Italian woman as somebody who manipulated men through their feminine charm, basically, which is why he like. I guess he saw the German woman as being more austere and
More strict.
more strict.
He talks about that in for context. He talks about that in The Beauty and Necessity of Violence. He says like Italian women are very great mothers and like affectionate lovers, but yeah, they baby their kids and make them soft. It's like it's kind of a stereotype, but there's some truth to it that like Italian men are all like mama's boys who like stay at home into their 30s, and there is some truth to it. I'm not gonna lie, but
He
but
blamed
yeah,
it on Italian women, I guess.
yeah,
He saw German women as raising their children to be warriors.
yeah. I thought that bit was funny. I do
I mean, he
prefer
was
Italian
reacting.
women, but
He wrote this when the whole Prussian ideal was still around in Germans.
yeah. And yet, while we remain dead set against the divinity of love, we affirm within ourselves the existence of an intellectual solidarity, which is an absolutely new discovery among the Latin peoples. I am referring to the spiritual friendship that brings together rebellious and innovative minds. Immense romantic love will thereby be reduced only to copulation for the preservation of the species, and the friction of the epidermis be freed from all provocative mystery, from all appetizing spiciness of sin and all Don Juanesque vanity. A simple bodily function like eating or drinking. Yeah, he wants to remove like the spiciness of sin from sex. It's very like utilitarian, like there's a
Yeah, this is what Monet really just wasn't asexual. Like, I don't think he saw I don't think he got any pleasure from sex or saw it as a pleasurable act.
yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah, I think we've covered like most of the main themes touched upon in the text. Does anyone have any like I don't know
I'll
final
touch on the
thoughts?
romanticism thing now, where Maroney was very anti-romanticist in his writings. Like, he didn't see life as a romantic thing. He saw life as like something. Basically, it's almost like a will to power kind of thing from Nietzsche, where and he wasn't influenced by Nietzsche, but you can kind of see that it lines up where he didn't see life as like something to be lived for pleasure or emotion. He saw life as like something you grasp and you conquer and you gain power through. You express your will through.
Yeah, and his writing against academic teachers, it's in critical writings. He's like very hard on Nietzsche, actually.
But now
But
for the will to power stuff,
I do
I
think
think
he absorbed the will to power stuff. He
yeah,
didn't like Nietzsche because
he was a
a
romantic.
he was a romanticist and he was like glorifying ancient Greece and like there is like all the Apollo and Dionysian stuff. Like he didn't like that and like looking backwards. Um, he says here like he is a traditionalist who walks upon the peaks of the Thessalian mountains, but alas, terribly encumbered by the longest ancient Greek texts. His Superman is a product of the Greek imagination, spawned from the three great stinking corpses of Apollo, Mars, and Bacchus. He is a mixture of elegant beauty, the warrior's strength, and Dionysian ecstasy, which are manifested in the greatest classical art. We are opposed to this Greek Superman, begat from the dust of libraries, and against him we set the man who was extended by his own labors, the enemy of books, friend of personal experience, pupil of the machine, relentless cultivator of his own will, clear in the flash of his own inspiration, endowed with the feline power of scenting out, with the ability to make split-second judgments, possessing those instincts typical of the wild, intuition, cunning, and boldness. He's pretty scathing of Nietzsche in that writing, which I think a lot of people have not read. But yeah, for like I don't know. I do think he did low key absorb the will to power stuff from Nietzsche, though. I think it's very prevalent. I also think.
I think it's not that hard to hold a kind of conception towards that. I can't imagine it's exclusively like a Nietzschean ideal that no one else could just come up with.
I also see the multiplied man as like the futurist version of the Ubermensch, or like the fascist new man. It has more of a glorification of machinery and merging man with machine than like Nietzsche would have, or like Gentile would have. But
it's a very anti-Christian notion, because in Christianity, your whole will is your life is supposed to be about serving God. But Nietzsche was all about like living for yourself, basically living for your own personal happiness, your own personal will to power. And Marinetti kind of takes that and puts it in a non-romantic sense and combines it with technology.
Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts on Nietzsche and futurism, or like how he relates to futurism? I think like Marinetti's interest in Nietzsche is like, or rejection of Nietzsche is complicated. Because like, I do think he did absorb a lot of Nietzsche, and like it is present, like in terms of the will to power stuff, and in terms of the new man. Like he did want. He like at one point, I forget where, but he even refers to himself as like a Darwinist, and he does believe in survival of the fittest. I think that is very present in futurist ideology.
Crazy how many people take influence from Nietzsche.
Yeah, everybody reads him and like claims him as their own. Marinetti's like unique in that like he rejects him officially, even though I do think he absorbed aspects of Nietzsche's philosophy. But
a lot of people who don't even read Nietzsche have actually absorbed aspects of his philosophy, even though like because of just how far-reaching it has been over the last 100 years or more at this point.
Again, I do kind of. I had a conversation with Artist Tyrant about this. We were kind of joking about it, but honestly, the way I do kind of see philosophy too is just kind of throwing shit at the wall till it sticks. And I mean, like when you read a philosophy, like when you're reading like a certain philosophy or whatever, again, it's not like a uniquely innate thing exclusive to them. It's merely just finding a philosophy that kind of resonates with you. Some of similar thoughts, like, oh wow, I was thinking this. That's what usually like a philosophy, like some sort of book on philosophy, I should say, is. It's usually just writing down your thoughts into like in quotations doctrine, not literally, but more so figuratively. And through that, you can start having more people looking into your line of thinking. Like any of us can right now write down a book, if we had like the creative ability to write down a book and put our thoughts into a book and call that some sort of X, Y, and Z kind of philosophy, and anybody can gobble that up. But that's not necessarily to demean philosophy. It's an interesting way to go look at it, really. I definitely do think people like harp too much intellectually and think like it's some kind of exclusionary idea that's unique to a certain person. That's it. Never anyone could have remotely the same conceptions.
yeah,
kind of got back about certain philosophies. Like usually, all philosophies have their truths to them, and you just have to take what works from all of them and and figure out your own way in the world with them.
Pick up what sticks. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of an open-ended question, but it doesn't have much to do with the text. But like, who do you guys think was the truest to Nietzsche? I mean, like the NS dudes claim themselves to be Nietzschean. George Bataille claimed himself to be Nietzschean. Personally, I think the anarcho-egoists were probably the truest to him, particularly the Italians like Renzo Novatore. That's who I think the Ubermensch would be. He would be a free spirit and a rebel. Like he would not be down with the authoritarianism of National Socialism. Just my take, but
I think in the end, the Ubermensch is not any single person. The Ubermensch is like you living your life how you want to live it, and not like if you want to be authoritarian, that's you being an Ubermensch.
For me, I just feel like it's just more so achieving a improved state, a better the new man sort of ordeal. I think it's just it's the goal to become gods, as artists would probably put it. That's the end mission. Just being at peak performance, top you can be, or even past that into transhumanism. Again, the goal is to from man to gods. That's the mission, and it doesn't really matter whether it's state or not, but it'd be better to have a state because a state would actually direct people into this kind of lifestyle and achieve this kind of ordeal. But again, this goes into the pedantics of how we talk about this, I guess.
Go ahead, Alcaz. It sounded like you wanted to say something.
I was saying that I think that I think that in the end, like the Ubermensch is the fully actualized person. It's the person that has come into their own, achieved their destiny, if you want to say that. Like I don't think really any political boundary or political leaning can claim to be the Ubermensch. I think as long as you're not being led by false creeds and you're embracing yourself, anyone can be an Ubermensch.
I think better yet, those people can achieve it through a state. But that is generally my take there.
I want to read a quote by Renzo Novatore and how he defines anarchism. I think it's very Nietzschean. That's why I bring it up. But anarchy is not a social form, but a method of individuation. No society will concede to me more than a limited freedom and a well-being that it grants to each of its members. But I am not content with this, and I want more. I want all that I have the power to conquer. Every society seeks to confine me to the august limits of the permitted and the prohibited. But I do not acknowledge these limits, for nothing is forbidden and all is permitted to those who have the force and the valor. Consequently, anarchy, which is the natural liberty of the individual, freed from the odious yoke of spiritual and material rulers, is not the construction of a new and suffocating society. It is a decisive fight against all societies, Christian, democratic, socialist, communist, etc. Anarchism is the eternal struggle of a small minority of aristocratic outsiders against all societies which follow one another on the stage of history. Thoughts on that quote from Novatore? I think it's very Nietzschean.
I think that it's definitely a very anarchist conception of Nietzsche.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone's free to disagree with me, but yeah, I'd say the Italian egoists are most Nietzschean. It might be a hot take, I don't know. Maybe someone in the comments will disagree, but yeah, we're getting kind of off topic. Does anyone have any final thoughts on the Multiplied Man and the Reign of the Machine?
No, not for me at least.
I think Jose Antonio's quote sums up my thoughts on him, that the right wants to preserve everything, even stuff that is bad, and the left wants to destroy everything, even that is good. And I think the futurists were on the left on this. Like they were the opposite. They were the left wing extreme of this, while the right at that time was the other extreme of like preserving everything. And I think fascism for that time was the perfect synthesis of both. That took
Yeah.
good aspects from both the old society, along with still looking towards the future.
Yep, that's a good point. In 2 weeks, we will be back, and the next topic should be archaeofuturism, unless something comes up, but that's the plan. So we will cover the synthesis of the two then. I still need to read it, but yeah, I guess on that note, we'll close up. I think this was a pretty good episode. Definitely an interesting read, and one I enjoyed discussing with you guys. So yeah, salute. Take it easy.